You were taught that being reliable makes you untouchable, that if you become predictable, people will trust you, follow you, and leave you alone. That belief is comfortable. It is also incomplete, because the moment your behavior becomes fully readable, it stops signaling strength and starts signaling access. And access is what people test. Predictability does not enter a room quietly. It announces itself through patterns, through timing, through the way you respond before anyone finishes asking. At first, this feels like trust. People lean in, they rely on you, they relax around you. But beneath that comfort, something else is forming. An internal calculation, a map of what you will tolerate, how fast you will comply, and where your edges actually are. The human mind is not drawn to stability the way we like to believe. It is drawn to leverage. When someone can forecast your reactions, they do not just understand you, they gain a form of control over the interaction, not through force, through expectation. They know what happens if they push. They know what happens if they wait. They know what happens if they ignore. And once that model is built, the dynamic changes. This is where the first challenges appear. Small ones, casual, a late reply that goes unaddressed, a boundary crossed lightly, a request framed as a favor instead of a question. These are not accidents, they are probes. The brain tests stable systems the way a hand tests a railing, not because it wants to break it, but because it wants to know how much weight it can hold. Consistency creates a loop. Your behavior becomes a signal. That signal becomes an expectation. That expectation becomes permission. When you always respond, people learn they do not need to consider your availability. When you always agree, they learn they do not need to negotiate. When you always absorb tension, they learn they do not need to manage it. Reliability becomes a resource others begin to use rather than a quality they continue to respect. This does not happen because people are hostile. It happens because the brain is efficient. It reduces uncertainty wherever it can. If your role in a social system is fixed and predictable, you become part of the background, and backgrounds are not protected. They are adjusted, moved, leaned on, rearranged to fit what is needed in the moment. There is a quiet shift that marks this transition. You will feel it before you can explain it. The tone changes, the requests become assumptions, the respect becomes casual, the space around you narrows. You are still valued, but now for your function rather than your presence, for what you provide rather than what you represent. This is the moment most people misread. They assume the answer is to become even more consistent, even more reliable, even more available. They think doubling down on predictability will restore the original dynamic. But in social systems, increased supply lowers perceived value. When your response is guaranteed, it no longer carries weight. It becomes a default. The psychology behind this is simple but uncomfortable. Humans calibrate status through uncertainty, not chaos, not volatility, but controlled unpredictability. When someone cannot fully anticipate how you will respond, they remain attentive, they remain respectful, they remain calibrated to your presence rather than relaxed around your predictability. This does not mean becoming erratic, it means becoming selective. The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Erratic behavior creates noise, selective behavior creates signal. One confuses, the other commands attention. When people know you will always show up, they stop preparing for you. When people know you will always agree, they stop persuading you. When people know you will always absorb pressure, they stop managing their own behavior. Predictability lowers the perceived risk of pushing, and what feels safe to push gets pushed. This is where dominance and submission cues quietly emerge, not in posture or tone, but in pattern. The one who sets the rhythm of interaction holds the frame. The one who follows it adapts to it. If your rhythm never changes, you are no longer setting it, you are maintaining it. You can see this in any stable hierarchy. The moment a role becomes too defined, it becomes easier to challenge, because the challenger knows exactly where the line is. And lines that are clearly drawn invite testing, not because people want to cross them, but because they want to know what happens if they do. Your predictability becomes a social surface, smooth, familiar, easy to press against. And the more it is pressed, the more it flattens into something others navigate rather than something they orient around. This is why people start challenging you, not when you become weak, but when you become readable. They are not reacting to your lack of strength. They are reacting to their lack of uncertainty about you. The solution is not to withdraw. It is not to become distant. It is to introduce controlled variation into your presence, not in big gestures, in small, precise shifts. Delay a response that would normally be immediate. Not to play a game, but to reintroduce pacing. Change the order in which you address things. Let some requests wait while others move forward. Allow your availability to become a variable rather than a constant. Enforce a boundary once, without explanation, without escalation. The absence of a long justification creates more impact than a detailed defense. It signals that the boundary exists independently of the other person's understanding of it. Reduce automatic compliance, not by refusing everything, but by pausing, by considering, by asking for clarification where you would normally proceed. This shifts the interaction from assumption back to negotiation. Maintain your reliability in outcomes, not in behavior. Let people trust that you deliver, but not that they can predict the exact path you take to get there. This preserves respect while restoring attention. Hold back information you normally offer freely, not to withhold, but to create space for others to engage rather than consume. When people have to ask, they invest. When they invest, they value. These adjustments do not create distance. They create dimension. You stop being a flat presence in the room and become a variable one, not unpredictable, unreadable. The dynamic changes quietly. People become more precise around you, more deliberate, more aware of how they approach. The testing fades because the outcome is no longer guaranteed. The leverage shifts because the map they built of you is no longer complete. This is where reliability becomes authority rather than access, where consistency becomes a foundation rather than a handle. You are still dependable, but you are no longer easy. The difference is not in what you do. It is in what you allow to be known in advance. Predictability feels safe. For others, controlled variation feels stable. For you. And once you understand that, you stop trying to be understood in every moment. You focus on being calibrated, present, selective. People do not challenge what they cannot fully read. They adjust to it.